Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have a brand new Nanmu figure to take a look at. However, you might be looking at this and thinking, well, I only see one box, Andy, what's going on? Well, normally I would have all three variants of the model to review at once, but so far this is the only one that arrived, so I figure what I'll do is just review this one first, and then we'll take a look at the two different paint variants besides this one in the next review of the Nanmu Giganotosaurus. And honestly, I feel like that probably makes the most sense to do it that way because the reviews usually end up going for so long when I try to get all three in one video, so it's just a little bit more convenient to do it in two separate videos. But as you can see, we've got the Giganotosaurus, the king of the border, and this is the kind of Jurassic World Dominion variant of the Giganotosaurus. It's also the Jurassic World Dominion color scheme of the Giganotosaurus, so we're straight away going to start out with like that main release from Nanmu. And you can see, if you notice that little box up there, we've got the DX version of this particular Giganotosaurus, which means we've got the base included. And I didn't get the DX version of the other two because I felt like I really didn't need the bases for the other two, so I just grabbed the Giganotosaurus models themselves, but this one I did get the DX version because I would like to have at least one base, but I don't need a bunch of bases in different color schemes. So I chose to only get the dinosaurs themselves with the other ones. As far as the base box goes, you can see it's basically just a black box with some Nanmu logos and a picture of the base, not really anything else going on with it, so that's not anything we need to take a look at further. But as far as the box art for the Giganotosaurus itself, you can see some really nice images here on the front, some beautiful artwork that they've given it. And then up here on the top, even though it's upside down, you can again see the King of the Border and the Nanmu logo. Of course, the bottom here is going to have some more images of the Giganotosaurus model itself, and it looks absolutely fantastic in these images right here. Definitely really cool looking. I think they absolutely nailed the overall appearance of the Giganotosaurus from Dominion pretty much perfectly, except for like one little tiny thing. And then the side has a Nanmu logo, the other side is a Nanmu logo. Let's turn it around. And then here on the back, you can again see a really nice image of the Giganotosaurus model contained within. So let's go ahead, pop this open, and we'll take a look at it. So straight away, we've got a human figure like you usually do. We do get human figures quite often in the Nanmu releases, but I think they're now kind of reserved for the DX versions, potentially. So if you get like the standard version, you don't normally get the human figure. And actually, that's definitely the case because the human figure came in the box with the base, whereas normally they used to come with the figure themselves, but this time now, because I guess it's become a DX exclusive, it's now part of the packaging with the base. And then we've got ourselves the base itself, and you can see it's just a nice little earthy area with a kind of a deceased tree in there, really taking you back to, Dominion, where the Giganotosaurus was roaming. It definitely looks like that type of an area. And then the Giganotosaurus itself. And there we are. That is one awesome Jurassic World Dominion Giganotosaurus. Like, I really don't know if it gets any better than this one. I don't think that there's anyone out there, honestly, when it comes to producing Jurassic-style models that can really compete with Nanmu as far as their overall quality, and that reason alone is why I think this Giganotosaurus will probably remain one of the best versions or the best version out there. I don't know for sure if it'll be the best version until I see my Soul of the Dragon version in hand, when that one comes in, maybe tomorrow or the day after, I'm not too sure, but I think that one has the potential to maybe be a little better than this one, but we'll have to wait and see. Regardless, this thing looks as epic as it gets, and if you are a fan of the Jurassic World Dominion Giganotosaurus, you're really going to want to get your hands on this. It looks awesome. So let's go ahead, jump to a closer look at this beauty right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt of our Giganotosaurus, you can see that when it comes to a Nanmu release, you are definitely going to get the highest quality sculpt. And you can see that as far as the fine detail through honestly every ounce of the head sculpt of this Giganotosaurus. It looks just jaw-dropping. I also feel like as far as the overall like skull shape and just shape of the dinosaur, the design of the dinosaur, Nanmu definitely nailed it as far as the accuracy goes. I really think it looks about as screen accurate as it gets. So definitely a huge plus as far as that goes. The only thing that I can see in the face that's kind of missing that you do see on the Giganotosaurus in Dominion is kind of like a tear in the upper gum. There's like a tear where you can see, actually I should say in like the upper jawline, there's like a tear in the skin where it exposes the gum line. And that's really about the only thing that I've noticed that's kind of missing from the Nanmu version. So maybe it's just, that Giganotosaurus prior to that injury. But you can see that the nostrils are sculpted nicely. They're also highlighted with a darker tone. The scale detail is incredibly impressive as you move through, as is the paintwork. They've done a very good job of painting it out in a way where it really highlights the incredibly impressive sculpt. You can see that the eye is painted with a nice green. There's actually some variation of color in there. Very nice, very precise paintwork. Also a nice gloss coat there. Maybe it's a decal. It's always hard to tell when it comes to the Nanmu releases because they usually give you really, really detailed eyes on their models, and that kind of leads me to believe that it's probably a decal, but really perfectly applied and looks great. You can also take notice to quite a bit of variation of color here on the face of the Giganotosaurus, as we have variations of like browns and grays and all kinds of color. And again, they've given it some nice dry brushing, especially up here in the palate area, to really bring out all of those scales. And you see a lot more of that down here on the lower jaw, as you can again see all sorts of variation of color. It also looks like they've given it a nice kind of a light gray wash, which really also makes the detail pop quite beautifully on top of the dry brushing they've applied. There is kind of like a little seam right here as you move back from the jaw, which isn't something that I normally see from Nanmu, and I don't think it really stands out that much, especially when you look at it from a slight distance, but it is something worth noting because it's not something that you usually see. The mouth is sculpted in an open position. We do not have an articulated jaw on the Giganotosaurus. It seems as though Nanmu has definitely done away with the articulated jaws on their models completely, now taking them from that kind of almost like a Papo type feel of a dinosaur, model to more of just like a really high-end collectible. And again, the lack of the articulated jaw kind of gives it that more high-end collectible feel. You can see again with the mouth sculpted in an open position. We've got the skin stretching really nicely here on the inside of the mouth. There's also some nice color variation right there. Really realistic as far as that paintwork goes. And you can see as the light hits it, that gloss coat looks perfect. We also have the tongue sculpted out in there. The tongue is really nicely textured. You can see that it's also very realistically painted as well. Very high quality paint job on the tongue, again giving it numerous different tones of color. And you can see the same thing there for the inside of the mouth on the lower jaw, and then I'm sure we'll see the same thing for the, oh wow, look at that, that is incredible looking. I am always blown away by the insides of the mouth of a Nanmu model because they're always so insanely hyper realistic, and you can definitely see that here. That gloss coat looks phenomenal. Look at the throat back there. It looks so realistic, it's actually quite crazy. And then, of course, our teeth are incredibly realistic as well. You can see they've been given that very nice, almost slightly kind of translucent, but not really, type of a look. Whatever material they use is really well done when it comes to recreating the look of actual genuine teeth, and they've kind of given them like a brownish wash as well, which helps to give them that somewhat dirty appearance, which I really like. And of course the teeth also have that gloss coat to them, so it all looks again as realistic and as lifelike as it honestly could get. It doesn't get any better than that. And I would say Nanmu is definitely leading the charge when it comes to realism in their models. Up here on the top of the head, you can again see all sorts of variation of scale, detail, scale, size, and you can also see again that light wash that's been applied, kind of crawling in and out of all the cracks and crevices of those dark gray scales. As you begin to move down the course of the neck, you of course pick up those Dominion Giganotosaurus ridges moving along the back, something that is definitely trademark of that particular version of a Giga. You can also see all of those kind of scoots moving down the course of the upper back as well. Again, very trademark of that dinosaur, all painted with those darker grays. And you can see how they kind of stripe and design down here along the side of the neck. You can also kind of see like some tensing in the neck as we move, let the light kind of hit it. You can definitely make out the structure and the tensing in the neck. You can also take notice to some skin wrinkles and stuff down here in the lower part of the throat. We also have kind of like a scoot-like appearance that runs down from the lower jaw here into the throat. And you can also see some nice color variation here for the underside, as we have variations of browns, but also kind of like a light tone that's been dry brushed over to highlight all of that detail. Very, very nice, very realistic paintwork. There's also like a brownish wash, it seems, that's been applied down there just to add a little extra color variation. The Giganotosaurus does have its head turned slightly to the right, and you can really make out that turn in the neck right there. As you move down, you've got the shoulder blade protruding from the skin a little bit right there. You've also got some more really smooth application of the paint. As you move down here into the arm, you can make out some more really nice scale detail. Also, the muscle definition is nicely displayed in the arm. You can see the elbow right there. Yet again, there is a seam for the elbow, which again isn't something that I normally see from Nanmu, but this one does have a seam in the elbow. But as you move down, you can see we've got some scoots down the fingers here, running down the hand actually into the fingers. Again, we have that light wash and that dark grayish tone. The nails are sculpted beautifully. They're also painted beautifully. They as well, if my camera would focus on it, they as well have a nice, let's get closer, nice gloss coat to them, so they shine like real nails would, as I'm trying to show you guys that the foot of the Giganotosaurus was actually kicking the camera. Moving back into the stomach region, you can again see the really nice looking scale detail, all sorts of skin wrinkles there kind of hiding behind the thigh. We've got more of those dark tones striping and designing down into the side of the dinosaur. You can see more of that light wash that's been applied to highlight the detail perfectly. More of those scoots moving along the back of the dinosaur. And if you are unfamiliar with the design for the Dominion Giganotosaurus, you can see that we start out with some ridges that are pretty small. They get a little bit bigger there in the back of the neck, then they decrease in size and then pick up drastically back here in the back. And this is one area that was a little bit controversial for many people. I don't think a lot of people like that. I actually think the design's really cool and definitely differentiates the dinosaur from so many other designs from the Jurassic franchise. So I was a pretty big fan of it, but again, a lot of people were confused. They thought maybe it was like a sail on its back or something like that, whereas it's just very large ridges, giving it again a bit of a unique appearance, and even the detail within the ridges actually looks really good. And of course the paintwork does as well. As you move down, you can see the hip bone here protruding from the skin a little bit. More really nice looking paintwork. Again, I love how they've applied this kind of light wash through many different areas of the figure to highlight the detail pretty much exactly as I recall from the Dominion Giganotosaurus. Moving down through the course of the thigh, you can again make out the muscle definition. Like, that is an absolutely massive thigh, just loaded with muscle. It is huge, and again, they've made the muscles look even more impressive with just how nicely they've defined them in the sculpt. And again, the paintwork just looks so good. They've definitely given it some nice dry brushing and everything down here to highlight the detail. And within the paintwork, again, you can see variations of grays, but there's also variations of browns. Like, there's just so many different, very subtle, different tones of color that have been added to this. It's super, super impressive paintwork. Moving down, you have kind of like a slightly scoot-like appearance moving down the front of the leg, kind of like a slightly armored sort of a look, similar to what we see on the top. You can again see a seam here for the knee, but the seams, even though they are visible, I don't feel like they are anything that take away from the model. And honestly, if I'm not pointing it out to you, I don't know that you'd really notice it. Like, I probably, if I wasn't looking for it, wouldn't be even paying attention to it, wouldn't even notice those seams at all. But they are present. You can definitely see them if you actually look for them. As you move down, you can see again a big bulging calf muscle, absolutely immense looking calf muscle. And then moving down the front of the leg, down into the foot, you've got more scoots running down the front of the foot, down into the toes. Really, again, nice looking paintwork. I love that they transition the color from the grays to the browns there of the bottom of the toes. Really smooth paintwork right there. And you can again see that the nails are very nicely sculpted and painted, again given that gloss coat, but there's even variation of color within the nails, as I could see grays or blacks and browns as well. So definitely some nice color variation, very realistic paintwork. You can also see the dew claws are painted. But as we move back up, you can again see some tensing as you lead out into the tail, and the tail has a bit of a curve going on, so they can also show that off very nicely in the positioning of the tail and the way that the skin is kind of reacting to that curve. We have more of like a kind of almost like crocodilian type looking scales here on the underside. And shockingly, we have a cloaca here on the underside of the Giganotosaurus. Now, that's something that's very new when it comes to Nanmu releases, something they didn't used to include, but I guess people were kind of asking them to begin including it. Honestly, I think that is a plus for the figures. Not everybody's going to care for that, but I love having super realistic models, and that definitely adds a good dose of realism to it. And then as you move out the length of the tail, you can again see all that same style of sculpt and detail with those kind of armored ridges and scoots moving down the back of the Dinosaur, the really nice scale detail down the side, and that, again, almost crocodilian type scaling here running along the underside as you lead out to that really nice curve in the tail. You can also see that the paintwork, again, looks phenomenal as we have all the variations of color like we had seen through the course of the model, but yet again, that, again, light wash is really nice looking as you move out the length of the tail. And you can see that there is quite the curve here, especially as you reach out toward the tip of the tail. It really curves right here. But that paintwork is absolutely phenomenal. And then taking a look at the opposing side of the head, yet again, you can see it looks pretty much just like it did on the initial side. Again, the eye paint is absolutely beautiful, very nicely applied, very realistically applied. All of the sculpt and detail is incredibly crisp and vibrant on the model as a whole. It all looks super, super nice. We can, again, see the seam over here, but I think it's even less visible over here. And then as you move back, you again continue to see that same type of detailing like we had seen on the initial side. Maybe a little bit more kind of creasing, or maybe even actually a little more stretching of the skin right here in this area, because the dinosaur has its head turned to the right, but it only has a slight turn to the right. It's not a massive turn, so you wouldn't see too much difference. And I think they've done a good job of displaying that as well. As you move down, you can again see the arm is pretty much in the same position as what we had seen on the initial side. It doesn't differ too much as far as the overall pose goes. And then as you continue to move along, you again see pretty much the same thing, except for the fact that the leg is trailing slightly here on this side, which does expose a little more of the stomach, gives us a chance to look at it a little bit better over here compared to what we saw on the initial side, since the leg was kind of obscuring it a little bit. And you can again see all of the fine detail. It looks incredible. All of the paintwork all looks incredible. Just gorgeous overall. This is definitely the Giganotosaurus to own if you are a Dominion fan. But then as you move back here into the leg again, same, even though it's a different position, same type of detailing, same type of paint. You again can see the seam there in the knee, but like I said, it's pretty well hidden for the most part. And then as you lead down into the foot sculpt also looks quite nice. And then you lead back up into the tail. You can see more tensing here in the tail as you lead out. But again, all of the paintwork looks incredibly smooth, incredibly realistic. The paintwork of Nanmu models, honestly, are like untouchable. Like, they just look insane, super, super realistic. And even though I used to believe that the Giganotosaurus from Dominion had more of a greenish color scheme, I've seen a lot of promotional stuff lately that shows off some really good high-quality images of the Giganotosaurus and shows off the fact that it's more of a gray than a green, like I had initially believed. And actually, to show you that, I recently acquired this cup of doodles, as it's called, in, oh, where is it? Yeah, see, a cup of doodles in the Walmart Easter section. And you can again see the coloration has that grayish tone to it. The eyes are green. And you can see if I bring the Nanmu Giganotosaurus up and take a look at it with the, cup that we have here, it definitely looks very, very similar. So I think Nanmu did an excellent job as far as both the sculpt and the paint job of this Giga. And then we also have the base, of course. You can see the base has a nice earthy sort of a texture to it, nice paintwork as we have variations of browns and greens all throughout, really kind of giving you that forested type of a look like you see in Dominion where they have the Giganotosaurus living. It definitely has that look overall, so Nanmu did a very good job of kind of replicating that here. On their base, there's of course a peg for you to apply the Giganotosaurus. You can also see the footprints of the dinosaur here are on the base very nicely to show you basically where to place your Giga. And you can see the tree looks really good. Again, very realistically sculpted, but also realistically painted. They've given it quite a bit of color variation to the tree itself to make sure that as well again looks super lifelike, super realistic. And then on the underside, you can see if I hold it the right way, we again have the King of the Border 2.0, because this is the second version of the Giganotosaurus, or at least the second sculpt of a Giganotosaurus, and you can see the Nanmu logo again. So really nice base for your Giga. And then we've got our human figure, and you can see the human figure as well looks pretty good, but it's always so hard to show these off because they're such light tones. They're so bright, and you almost can't even pick up the fine detail on camera, but it definitely looks good. Again, these figures would look cooler if they were painted, but I don't think that's really the point of including them. Like, they don't really want to paint them. It's just kind of these really cool collectibles that they've been including probably since the beginning or very close to the beginning of the Nanmu releases. And I have seen some people paint them, and they always look phenomenal. And again, that's due to just how good the sculpts are. I don't know how good it's picking up on camera, but you can see all the muscle definition and everything is really, really nicely done again on the figures. So definitely a cool addition to this set. And then, of course, to attach your Giganotosaurus to the base, you do have a hole on the bottom of one foot, which is where you slide it into the peg, and you just want to kind of ease it down there and get it on nice and snug. And then there you go, your Giganotosaurus is now on its base, and it does stand really nicely without the base, which is why it's safe to buy the Giganotosaurus like the standard version without the base. The base definitely isn't needed. It does add a little bit of fun to it, but it's not something that's absolutely necessary. But as far as a size goes for our Giga, I am surprised to see that this looks like it might be a little bit smaller than the older Nanmu Giganotosaurus. So for a length from the tail to the snout, you're looking at about 16.5 inches, or right around 42 centimeters. And then for a height, top of the head might be the highest point. Yeah, it looks like it is. So about 7 inches, or around 18 centimeters. It's a little tough to see if that's the highest point or the ridges in the back. The ridges in the back actually might be. That looks like it's a little over 7 inches, or a little over 18 centimeters, but it's not much of a difference if it is a bit taller in that area. But for a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line next to our Giganotosaurus. And you can definitely see that even though I think it's a little smaller than the older Giga, it still has a very impressive size to it. And it also has a convenient spot there where the head lands, because it looks like it's right about to bite the face off of Mr. Papo Rex. Like, they almost fit perfectly together there once the Giga's up on the base. But definitely a very nice size overall. For another comparison, there is a Mattel Dilophosaurus and a Mattel Velociraptor next to the Giganotosaurus to help again further give you an idea of the size. We also have some randoms that I use quite often, as we have the Collect Day Deluxe Dimetrodon, the Safari LTDU Tyrannus, and Schleich Diabloceratops next to our Giganotosaurus here, just to again give you a pretty good idea here of the fact that it's quite large. Here is a comparison next to the Nanmu Tyrannosaurus Rex, the Rexy model that they had released quite a ways back, next to again our Giganotosaurus, going face to face here, giving you a pretty good idea that they are fairly similar in size, with the Giganotosaurus being slightly larger, I would say. I don't know who would win in a length department. So they're pretty similar in length, but the Giganotosaurus definitely looks like it would win that round as far as a length goes. But for another comparison, here is the older, absolutely phenomenal Giganotosaurus from Nanmu. And looking at these two together, maybe I just felt like the older one was bigger. But looking at the two together, they actually look like they are about the same size. So maybe I was wrong with my opinion earlier that the newer one was a little bit smaller, because they actually do look like they're pretty much right there in the same similar size range overall. And then for a size comparison next to the Mattel Giganotosaurus, which doesn't even look remotely as accurate as the Nanmu version, you can definitely see again that the Mattel version is obviously a good bit larger. Really hoping that at some point Mattel re-releases a Giganotosaurus with a much better head sculpt and a less obnoxious action feature, because it would be a really cool figure, but they definitely have some work to do on theirs. Regardless, you can definitely see again that the Nanmu version is a little bit smaller than the Mattel version, but way higher in quality, of course. And just because it's probably one of the most popular releases when it comes to Jurassic World or Jurassic Park style collectibles right now, we've got the Hammond Collection Tyrannosaurus Rex here next to the Giganotosaurus, just to iron out one final comparison. So this brand new Nanmu King of the Border Giganotosaurus is absolutely awesome. I really love this. Again, not everyone's probably going to like it, because I know there were a lot of people that weren't a big fan of the overall design of the Giganotosaurus from Dominion. However, I really liked it. I thought it was super cool looking. It was close enough kind of to what the animal looks like, but with that Jurassic World sort of exaggerated look, and of course adding in things like those extra large ridges moving down the back. I became accustomed to it very quickly, became a pretty big fan of it very quickly, and I've been pretty much aching for someone to make a really good version of it at some point, and Nanmu seems to have been the first one to step up and really make that, in my opinion, almost definitive version of this Giganotosaurus, and they did a really good job on theirs. The sculpt is phenomenal. Again, the only thing missing as far as the sculpt goes, as far as I'm aware anyway, that little area where it's like torn on the upper jaw where it kind of exposes the gum. That's the only thing that I'm really not seeing on this. Now, I'm of course no expert when it comes to what the Giganotosaurus looks like in Dominion, but as far as my eyes go, they're telling me that this looked pretty much exactly like it looks in the film. So they did a great job on the screen accuracy, as well as the insanely beautiful fine detail. The fine detail on this is absolutely incredible. As you move through the scale detail, the skin wrinkles, the muscle definition, everything looks as realistic and lifelike as it gets, and also it looks just like it did in Dominion. The paintwork as well is phenomenal, but I expected no less when it comes to a Nanmu release. They always blow me away with how good their paintwork is, and that is no different here with this Giganotosaurus. And as I had shown earlier, it seems as though the Giganotosaurus, even though it was kind of like, I think, believed to be more of a greenish coloration for quite a while there, and it might still have some greenish tints to it in some angles, but I think primarily it's more of a grayish color from what I've seen on the promotional material for Dominion. So I think Nanmu did a good job as far as matching the Giganotosaurus colors here up to what we've seen on a lot of the promotional work with those grayish tones, and definitely looks really, really good as far as the coloration goes, as far as I can tell. And when I had initially seen this unveiled, I was like, why does it look gray? Because it's more of a green color. And I was actually wrong, I think. And again, unless maybe it just has some slight tints of green to it, but most of what I see nowadays seems to be more of a grayish color. So they definitely nailed it as far as the coloration goes. And the actual paintwork looks phenomenal. Like, so much variation of color on it, really smooth application. All of those kind of patterns and stuff moving through is applied in the absolute smoothest way possible, the most realistic way possible. They've done a great job of adding in so much different varying skin tone, as well as nice dry brushing techniques and washes throughout to make sure that all of the detail has a lot of depth to it when it comes to the paintwork, and also, again, just pops the detail perfectly. And then we also have a pretty darn nice base. It kind of replicates the area where the Giganotosaurus seems to be living in Dominion, so that's also a nice touch, and a pretty darn good size to it overall. So without question, this is another absolute win for Nanmu. This might be one of my favorite figures that they've released so far. So if you are interested in picking this up, make sure you head to the link in the description that I have included to take you straight to Lana Time Shop, where you can grab yourself one of these amazing Giganotosaurus models for yourself. Definitely a huge recommendation from me. So if you are interested, again, check those links. Go grab this Giganotosaurus, and also like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.